Greetings and welcome to the Astra Kansas Money Talks podcast. I'm Joe Blubon. I'm here with our hosts, Bob Schwartz and Mark Johnson of Bob Schwartz Financial in Silver Lake, Kansas. We're going to continue our conversation about Kansas and all things that impact money in Kansas. And one of the things we wanted to talk about today was the 2025 contribution limits. Every year in October, the federal government puts out cost of living increases for Social Security, among other things, one of those being what are the new contribution limits for retirement plans. And obviously those just came out. Mark, what are some of the new contribution limits when it comes to, for say, IRAs?
Yeah, so your IRAs, your traditional and your Roth IRAs stayed at the same limits as 2024, which was $7,000 in those. If you're 50 and older, that number is at $8,000, $1,000 more that you can catch up with. But those kind of stayed the same there for your traditionals.
Okay, and then was there limits to income for people that want to put money into Roth IRAs?
Yeah, and so that number has changed a little bit. So we've seen that number go up. So if you want to keep contributing to a Roth, if you're a single filer, that number went from $150,000 to $165,000. And if you're a joint filer, that number went up from $236,000 to $246,000. So we're seeing a $10,000 increase there. As a single filer, we're seeing even a $15,000 increase where you can keep contributing to a Roth IRA.
Okay, so when we talk about a Roth IRA and income limits that go along with that, those same income limits also impact if you're contributing to a traditional IRA if you want to make that tax deductible. Is that correct?
That is correct. So make sure that you're aware of those tax implications to your accounts, your traditional and Roth accounts. And if you are struggling with those questions, make sure you're talking to your tax advisor, your money manager, someone. Make sure you understand those tax implications.
So let me ask you guys a question. Let's say that I'm married and I make more than $250,000 per se, but I still want to contribute to a Roth IRA. Is there a way that I can do that?
You bet there is. Joe, the way to handle that is what we call a backdoor Roth. And so anyone can do an IRA no matter how much they make if they do a traditional non-deductible IRA. So you put the money into that, and if you leave it there, it accumulates tax deferred, but you don't get a deduction for the $7,000 that you put in. But also you can take that $7,000 that's not deductible and convert that to a Roth, generally a day later, convert it to a Roth, then it becomes a Roth IRA and grows tax-free.
And there's no income limits when it comes to Roth conversions?
No, there's not. There's no income limit no matter if we're coming from a 401k. But on a backdoor Roth, you can put the money in, convert that over a non-deductible IRA. And those are quite popular. Where would people fall into that category? They have a 401k at work that they're able to fund fully, and they're hunting for more places to get some tax deferred or tax free income for their retirement years. So it's very popular, and we see that, and the point being about IRAs, well, who uses traditional IRAs? People we're talking to, Kansans, ag producers that don't realize they can set up a retirement plan for no expense, and so they want to fund those. This is a bad year for farming. This is a bad year for ag. Their incomes aren't going to be huge this year. This is the year when folks need to be funding a Roth or funding a traditional, whichever they want. But these type of years give ag producers, especially those that don't have a retirement plan set up for their corporation or their partnership, the opportunity to put those away. So that's why we kind of want to cover this going into first of the year in tax season.
And Mark, you mentioned that the contribution limit, $7,000 for those under the age of 50, $8,000 for those over the age of 50. And I'm going to talk specifically about Roths here for a second. If you have earned income and at least your earned income has to be at least that $7,000 or $8,000. You can put money into that Roth IRA. What about maybe a stay-home spouse? Can they also contribute it to a Roth if they don't have earned income?
Yeah, as long as the money, your spouse is earning income, they can contribute to that Roth for you. Yeah, and we see that some, with stay-at-home parents or anything like that, they make enough and they want to make sure we're contributing. That is allowed, yeah.
Okay, very good.
That's another way so again, to go back to the ag producer in Kansas, they can, they're over 50, let's say, and they haven't put a lot of money into retirement planning or anything, but they would like to get started. There's a place to put $16,000 and write it off your tax. And I'm going to say that again, to put away $16,000 and write it off of your income, because I've never met a farmer that wants to pay taxes. And this year, that might be a great place to put a deduction, or let's say you didn't make a lot this year, it'd be a great place to do a Roth. So a substantial amount you can put away over a few years.
And I know that there's always been a lot of discussion of what's better for the average taxpayer, Roth contributions, traditional contributions. And I would guess that it really comes down to the individual, and maybe that's where it's important that they work with a financial advisor.
If someone Mark's age comes in, we are 100% telling them to do Roths. If they can afford to do their 401k and not get the advantage of the tax advantage of it, do the Roth, because that's going to be tax-free someday. Now, somebody comes in my age that already has regular traditional retirement plans, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. It just really doesn't matter at my age. Now, then where you've got to do some figuring is your age. In the 50-year-old age group, what we like to see is a nice combination where when people your age get ready to retire, they've got a nice sum of money that they can grab tax-free, but that they also have taken the advantage of some tax deductions during their working life, or what's left of their work time. So I have sat with accountants. The accountant that I work with have sat and worked every way out trying to figure out conversion at my age, and it's it just doesn't make any sense. You have to pay a big ball of tax, but oh boy, then it's tax free. But you lose that money's ability to create income during retirement, and
the opportunity cost.
Right, opportunity cost of your money, and if I don't need that money, my kids can pay the taxes. Right? I mean, I believe in legacy planning and taking care of my family, and but if I don't need it, why not let somebody pay the tax over 10 years instead of me paying it?
So what I'm hearing is it really comes down to the individual, the family, and what their goals and plans are for, all kinds of different things. Legacy, what it might be for their, if they're a high income earner and that tax deduction versus somebody that, is like Mark, younger in life, that has lots of time to recoup.
Before 2019, if you passed away, you could use life expectancy. So let's say that a parent passes away, leaves $200,000 in an IRA for a child, and let's say that person was 40. Okay, they could take their lifetime to do the withdrawal. Otherwise, they could basically just take out an income stream over the rest of their life. Well, if you're 40, that's quite a while, and you don't have to pull very much out, and you could do that for the rest of your life.
And I believe those were called stretch IRAs, correct?
IRAs. And
Yep.
in 2019, government went, well, this isn't working out quite the way we needed it to. We're going to start pulling money out, making you, if you inherit a Roth or a traditional, that you have to pull that money out in 10 years. Well, a lot of people, when they lose their parents, are in their 40s or 50s, hopefully later than that. And they could sit and go, okay, then I can start this income stream is going to come in, I can reinvest it, and then when I retire, I'll have this income stream. Well, now if a parent passes away at 50, they've got to pull out the money by 60.
Right.
And so that kind of changed that whole dynamic of conversion. Made a lot of sense when you could take a Roth and do a lifetime income stream. Now 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people in that age group of 50 to 60, when they're going to get that inheritance, that IRA that they're now going to have to withdraw within 10 years, that's their high income years.
Yes.
That automatically means they're going to be paying the most taxes on those traditional
Correct.
IRAs.
Correct. So to stem that, young people hit the Roth, and if you're gone, then when your children are in their 50s and they inherit it, they're getting tax-free money for 10 years, and they can put it hopefully somewhere.
So a Roth IRA, they still have to take it out within 10 years, but the tax has already been paid. Therefore, those inheritances are not taxed.
And I'm not being a pro or con anything, but in essence, the best way to leave money to your heirs, if you want it to be lifetime generational wealth, is non-qualified money, meaning not IRA and not Roth, because you can leave your children, your heirs, ground or stocks, and they get what's called a stepped-up basis. And Kansans love that, because if mom and dad paid $100 an acre for ground and it's worth $4,000 today, when we're gone, that ground goes to the children at that stepped up basis. And if they keep it, it steps up the basis again. And generational wealth is truly, if you have all non-qualified, not Roth, not IRA money to leave your heirs, and it's a whole nother show. But what we talk about, building up a money that you just want the income that it derives, you don't want to touch. That's called farm ground and dividend paying stocks, if anybody was wondering.
So we've talked a lot about IRAs, but that's just one piece of it. So if somebody has, let's say that I contribute my annual income or my annual limit to a Roth or a traditional IRA, am I still allowed to put in money into a workplace retirement plan as well?
Yeah, so the contribution limits for your 401k, 403b, 457, TSPs, you can still contribute to those. Those are obviously incredibly important, and they're what we really recommend you take advantage of. You need to take advantage of those workplace retirement accounts. It's especially when they offer a match or anything that allows you to get a benefit from working from that employer. And so that number went up a little bit this year, or for next year, 2025. I think 2024 you could contribute up to $23,000. I think that number's changed, or it has changed to $23,500 in 2024. And then there are a lot of different catch-up provisions with the 401ks that are a little bit different. If you're 50 and older, you can add up to $7,500. You can add up to, if you're 50 and older, so you could give up to $31,000 to max out that 401k or that retirement plan. And there's actually even another catch-up provision. If you're 60 to 63 years old, you can give up to $10,000 more. So that means you could give up to $34,750 if you're in that age group, to catch up with those retirement years.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because what is Congress showing us very plainly is Americans don't have enough money going into retirement. Mm-hmm. And so they give us the opportunity during our higher, as we just talked about, the higher earning years to step up those contributions. Which brings me to the point of talking about 401ks for small businesses. We in our business just converted this year to a 401k model for our small business. Always thought it would be way too expensive, to do it. And ag producers out there, small business owners, need to talk with us about doing a small business 401k. Very cost efficient. Increases the limits from the what are called simple IRAs, which are great. We've used those for years to help people accumulate dollars, but 401ks are a tremendous place for business owners to put away money. And also, if you want to share with your employees and help them benefit, it's phenomenal what a business owner can do. Don't have to. It's optional, but the things that they can do to help their employees.
Yeah, and if you're lucky enough to work in a business that, or work for a company that offers a really, strong match, we're looking at those, if they match up to 6%, you should be taking advantage of that. Make sure you're taking advantages of your matches of your 401k. If you're a younger person, if you're someone my age and you were, I don't know, even if you're coming out of college, you're 25 years old, you can find a way to at least contribute up to that match. I mean, it pays so much in dividends in 20 to 30 years. You'll be so thankful for that decision.
So let's dive into that a little bit, because I'm a small business owner. I'm a real estate agent, so we're self-employed, and I contribute to what's called a self-employed pension, a SEP. And it's very similar to a 401k. Obviously, there's no match, or if there would, it'd be me contributing to my own match, but there's no match with a SEP. What's the difference between a SEP, a simple IRA, or a simple 401k, and what you were just talking about, kind of an expanded 401k plan?
Simple IRA, I'm going to go off my head, 16.5 this year you can put into it. I'm going to give you the basic difference. Next year I think it's 17,000, something in that range, and with the catch-up provision to take you up to like 20. So you can put some good money into that, and as an owner of a business, you match 3% for yourself, but also for every employee that you have. So an individual is just matching for himself. A SEP plan, great plan, max $64,000. Okay, and if you have an employee, you have to do the same percentage for them. But again, self-employed, you don't have to worry about that. So sometimes a SEP, I didn't bring that up. Sometimes a SEP is, especially for high earners, is really fantastic. Okay, we just got done talking about a 401k. So a 401k you can put in 23.5.
23.5 this year.
This year.
2025.
And you can put that away. Plus you're self-employed, so you can add the catch-up provision to it, but then also you can do profit sharing in it, and that can be huge. And they're called single plan 401ks. Even with our small business, that's what ours is called. Is a single operator 401k, but your annual cost of that's about $1,000 to $1,500 a year. They file the 5,100 for you. The administrator we have does anyway, and they file all your tax returns, make sure you're legal, and you have a 401k. But the maximum you can put into that is basically limitless.
So it's very intriguing to me because, IRAs have been around, or I'm sorry, 401ks have been around since the 70s,
84, 85.
Okay, 84, 85. And, as somebody who's not really into this industry, I've always thought that must be just really for large employers because it's so expensive. And I think historically it has been.
Yes.
But it sounds like those prices have come down considerably.
The government has, the legislature, the House of Representatives has passed legislation that simplified the operation of them. The simple plan, the simple IRA, when it was designed, I believe was for 105 employees or less. Okay, so that's a pretty good sized company.
Yeah.
And it used to be they charged you per
participant
in it, and and the expenses were maybe 1-2%, and of the cost for the companies, and companies wouldn't do them early on because of that expense. It has really been trimmed down the last 10 years, and when I looked at what the cost was for us to go to a 401k, and we've been established in a simple plan for a long time, my accountant couldn't understand why I did it, and once I showed him, once we got the numbers and everything, it was like, why haven't we been doing this before?
Very good. As we look at other changes that have happened, are there any other things that you wanted to talk about as far as contribution limits? I don't have it in front of me, but Social Security went up in October as well, or it didn't go up. It will go up as of January 1st of 2025. That usually follows the CPI.
Have we seen that number?
I believe it's out. I think it's
3%?
I think it's under 3, but don't quote me on that. But
2.7 maybe?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Don't hold. Us old people like to know how much our Social Security is going up, Joe. So I'm looking forward to that.
Understood. I definitely remember it being under 3. We'll put it at that.
Yeah.
So I think it is mid to high 7,
2.7.
2.7.
Last year was biggest one in 30 years. So, and they did get inflation under control. That helps. That helps. And interest rates are going to go down. They're going to go down more.
Yep.
Just knocked them off a quarter, and I think we'll see that trend for a year or two now, where they're going to be pretty aggressive. I don't mean aggressively each quarter, but over a couple of year period, I think we'll see interest rates go down.
And what Bob was just referring to, a couple of months ago, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 0.5 point, and then just here in the last week have cut it again by another 0.25 point. So you are starting to see interest rates go down. Of course, that's great for potential home buyers.
Great for your industry.
Yes, great for those that are looking to buy a home, and great for those that are looking to sell a home. The market has been fairly flat as people have kind of waited to see what interest rates were going to do. Believe it or not, I believe that, this is just my opinion, but I think that the election really put the squadouche on people moving in the real estate market. I think they were kind of waiting to see how it would all shake out. So it is exciting in the housing market to see kind of how that will come about with lower interest rates coming in. Of course, we're coming into the holidays where it's naturally slower anyway, but hopefully this spring we'll start to see the housing market pick up a little bit.
What do interest rates have to go to really bust out real estate, do you think, Joe?
Well, they definitely need to be under 6. And, we've had this conversation. It's a good time to have this conversation with everybody. But, interest rates at around 6% historically are really, really good rates. Unfortunately, for the last 15 years, we've been in that 3 to 4% rate or even lower. And that's what a whole generation of home buyers are used to. And this is just my opinion. I'll caveat it with that. I don't think we're going back to those anytime soon. So, from my opinion, we definitely have to be under 6, but I think we need to be closer to that 5.5 to really open up the market. What we see is a lot of people who would love to sell their home, would love to buy a new home. They would like to, move up but they're locked in at a 3% or lower interest rate.
They don't, yeah.
And they quite frankly cannot upgrade without their payment going through the roof. Yeah, absolutely.
There's like every millennial, is that bought a house in the 2017, 2018, 2019. We're all like, I guess we're just going to live in our homes forever. Yeah. We're not going to move up.
And we're talking about Kansas here. I think Kansans will jump in. I think this is my personal opinion, and then I'm going to talk about what I hope the feds do. I think somewhere in between the 4 and 5.5% range, houses will be flying off, so to speak, off the shelf. But I don't want it to get down to 2.7 or 2.8 because when we got down that low, it handcuffs the Fed. And they can't make reactions when they need to increase it. They can only increase interest rates. They can't go any lower. We had that talk several years ago about going negative on interest rates. So I personally hope that we don't see that. And then also I hope we don't see it that low because we like for our clients as they age to be able to get some return from U.S. Treasury bills, from certificates of deposit. And quite honestly, they got used to that the last 2 years with some 5% CDs. They're already migrating down to 4.3, 4.4, and they're not going to go up.
Right. And I do think interest rates are that double-edged sword because for those that are buying a house, it's important that they're a little bit lower. I mean, it is amazing the power of compound interest on a home mortgage and how much it impacts your monthly payment just a couple of basis points can make. But on the flip side of that, especially, you know, at my age, in my early 50s, I'm looking towards those more conservative investments, and it has been nice getting 5% on my money. And it, you know, if I could guarantee myself 5% for the rest of my life, I'd take it in a heartbeat at this point.
It's certainly better than the 4% rule.
Yes.
You know, like I think about people my age can relate to this. I think about when my parents were in their 60s and in 50s, and my mom calling up and going, "I got 16%, you know, on a CD for 2 years," and things like that. When I got out of college in 1973, if you bought the IRAs, max you could put in was $1,500. There was a bank in Wichita that if you put $1,500 in it, they'd guarantee you 12%.
Wow.
I have met a lady who called me up to visit with me from Wichita. Her dad made her buy one, same age as me. Made her buy one for $1,500 when she was like 22 years old, and the amount of money was in that was unbelievable. Guaranteed 12% as long as she's alive.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're still honoring that. Back when I met with her, it was like $265,000. Now, I want to tell you what she had been told and why she called me. A friend of hers was a client of mine, and she said, you know, call up Bob and have him talk with you. I go down, and an investment advisor had told her to transfer that over to him and get out of that. Can you believe that?
A guaranteed 12%.
Guaranteed 12%. Now, I'm sure the bank could have said, matter of fact, this lady told me that the bank told her there were only like 7 left. But you know, that had to be kicking that bank. And they only did it 1 year, so the most anybody had in it was $1,500. But you take $1,500 at 12%. And I still talk to my client down there and keep track of her. She never really did any other savings, but she didn't have to. The power of compounding.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But an advisor told her to get out. Now, the advisor told her to get out for one reason, and that was his pocketbook.
Correct. He wanted that asset under management.
Yeah, and that's just not right.
Absolutely.
Not right.
So we've talked a little bit about contribution limits and everything for 2025. And Bob, you mentioned specifically some of the things that have been done to make this industry, or not this industry, but things easier when it comes to setting up 401ks. And it's kind of a nice segue because there are a lot of things that the government does that impact your finances on a daily basis. And I want to dive a little bit into, before we wrap up, the state of Kansas and kind of what we're seeing from a financial perspective. Could be impacted by legislation, could be impacted just by the economy in general. But Mark, what are some things we're seeing in Kansas as far as unemployment? Are we continuing to see rising incomes? Things like that.
Yeah, so in Kansas, our unemployment rate is 3.3% as of right now. The national average is about 4.2%, so we are under the national average of unemployment rate, which is great. But with Kansas, we're going to struggle with, or not maybe struggle, but we do have some like challenges when it comes to our employment in the coming years because of our aging population. And so one thing that we're going to have to deal with is this shrinking of our labor pool because we have so many people aging out. And with our somewhat limited opportunities in our rural areas, we have to be a little bit creative in ways that we get people working in Kansas and keep people in small towns too.
The demographic of if we go to Phillipsburg, Kansas, or Valley Falls, Kansas, or Onega, Kansas, where each one of us have roots there. And when I was a kid, I had to go a half a block to find 4 brothers, and a half block down the hill to find a brother and a sister, and otherwise I could go play with people within 100 yards of my house every day. And if you go up to Onega, Kansas, and I've been to all 3 of these towns in the last few years, any small town in Kansas, it's an aging population. And we have to face that about what kind of things do we need to do economic development wise to bring in new people to replenish that workforce. I don't know what the answer is, but we make a good income in this state, but it's all in 4 counties.
Yeah.
Or 6 counties maybe.
And I think that, there are some opportunities that Kansas already provides for people to try to get back to small towns. And I just think that needs to continue. Like, when I was in college, there were so many pushes to go teach out in Western Kansas, and, they'd pay for your student teaching, and then they'd pay for your housing and these type of deals. Or, hey, go work at this rural hospital and we'll pay off your, loan forgiveness. There's lots of opportunities with those, what are they? Relocation grants and loan forgiveness through the rural opportunity zones. But I really think those need to be actually more publicized, and
deeper.
They need to be they need to be deeper, especially with the ability for workers to be able to work from home now. There needs to be something along with that where rural connectivity becomes a bigger issue in Kansas, because people will go live in their small town where their parents are or where their family is if they can do their work, from their home still.
On a high speed.
Yeah.
Internet, infrastructure and programs. This is what happens in the little town. Now they've got 3 doctors and they've got a great hospital where I grew up at, and it's well staffed. But I don't know how many times doctors have come in and they do their number of years it takes to have everything taken care of, and then they're in Kansas City or Wichita, and I'm not begrudging them, but if you make that obligation deeper, where maybe their kids get into school and they become ingrained in the community, makes it I guarantee if I lived in Phillipsburg for a year, I might, if I'm a young person, I might want to get out. But if I'm there for 10 years, I've probably grown to love the community.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I'm a perfect example of that. I'm from Phillipsburg. I went to school at Hayes, Fort Hayes, graduated from there. And, my goal was to live in Hayes. I loved that community. I had been there for quite some time by the time I graduated from college, but there was nothing to keep me there. What I had chose to do in my career brought me to Eastern Kansas, and now we're deeply rooted here. But one of the things that I have seen through the real estate industry is COVID changed the rules a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see. I think this is a long-term thing, and we'll see how it plays out. But just in a very limited, kind of anecdotal, view of things, I saw a lot of people from the coast that moved to Kansas, moved to the Midwest, but specifically Kansas, maybe not in the numbers that they saw in Texas and places like that, but people realize they don't have to live where they work anymore. And I think that's an opportunity Kansas has, because we have a lower cost of living than the coast, because of our people and our work ethic and our kind of who we are. I think people will like that. A certain class of people will like that, and it'll be interesting to see over the next decade or two how that plays out.
And I think the key, Joe and Mark, to that happening will be government. Like we're going to lose our sales tax. That's going to disappear, which I think is very important for all of us, but especially for the lower income. But to get our state taxes more commensurate with the states that surround us, and be, I know we need a state income tax, but to get our arms around that, and to get our arms around property taxes, because that's the thing we hear most from our client base is, oh my goodness, my ground or my home has gone way up. And I think if we see government policy that helps people return to this state, and again, gosh, if any of us could go, if you're people my age could go back to, and many of us still live where we grew up at. If we could go there and see it be like it was when we were young, when there was businesses that were vibrant besides the post office and the bank. When I was a kid, there were 4 gas stations in Onega, and 4 families raised kids off those gas stations. Today there's 1 convenience store. There's 1 mechanic in town, and yeah, he's raised a family there, but that wasn't 4 mechanics. It's different.
Well, we could spend a whole show talking about Kansas policy, Kansas tax policy. I think we could spend a whole show talking about property taxes. But I think it's a good opportunity to kind of wrap this episode up. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today and your knowledge. And once again, if you're kind of looking for an opportunity to work with a financial advisor, Bob and Mark, they have offices in Silver Lake, Kansas, as well as Victoria, Kansas. Best place to go is bobschwartzfinancial.com. Get in contact with them through there. And
can I do this because I watch them do this all the time?
Yeah.
Mark, right below, and follow, and you'll get each week when we put out a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're following us on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on one of the podcast services, subscribe, give us a rating. We'd love that. And we'd love your feedback as well. So go to bobschwartzfinancial.com. Let us know how you feel. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.